Welcome to One Brothas Mind, and I am KD Smooth. Today we will question and challenge popular information and views from a B1 perspective, while we expose the real facts you need. We do this to strengthen your logical, critical, and discerning thinking skills. Because in today's world, hard choices are mandatory and they come with consequences. So you need all the information. And at One Brothas Mind, we do this from a B1 Yeshua the Christ followers perspective. Now, if you're not ready, you better get ready with KD Smooth at One Brothas Mind. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's KD Smooth coming back at you with a new report. I pray you all are doing well. Shalom, family. In today's report, we are going to discuss or have a look at this issue here. Our next installment in our systematic white supremacy series, white supremacist Muncie, Indiana prosecutor and courts protecting terrorist race soldiers. This report, family, is actually a follow-up on our previous report we've done here at One Brothas Mind. I'm going to share with you the thumbnail for that report so you can be able to go to One Brothas Mind and scroll down the video or live tabs and you can find this report, or you can just go to the playlist tab and find the systematic white supremacy playlist. You can also find that previous report there. In addition, I will also link the previous report for this Muncie, Indiana situation at the end of this video, so you can easily find it there as well. Okay, y'all. We're going in on this one, as we do on all of our reports. We get your popcorn ready. We're going in right quick. We're going in. Buckle up. Again, we're going to discuss the white supremacy or white supremacist Muncie, Indiana prosecutor and courts protecting their terrorist race soldiers. In this report, I'm going to share with you a news clip update, and then we're going to chop it up from there. So to begin, without further ado, smash the like button, share this report on all your social media with all your peoples, and be sure to be subscribed to One Brothas Mind, where we try to bring you the information and facts you need. All right. Today, once again, I am going to show you the face, or in this case, the faces of Satan. Yeah, take a good long look. The faces of Satan. And be clear, the faces of Satan are not only the 5 faces on your screen, but they also include the Muncie prosecutor and judge for this case that we're about to discuss. They are all in on the same evil. Okay? So, at this time, we're going to share with you our video clip. It's a real short clip. It's just over a minute long to give you the update on this story. And then we'll come back to it and I'll show you some additional things within this clip. Okay? All right, here we go.
Muncie police officer will spend 10 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to 11 counts of using excessive force and trying to cover it up. A judge sentenced Chase Winkle, the son of former police chief Joe Winkle, to a decade behind bars, followed by 2 years of supervised release. Winkle admitted to assaulting 5 suspects, including Manny Montero and Lonnie Gannum, which caused serious injuries to their heads and faces. Winkle also admitted to writing false reports to cover up his misconduct. He was convicted on 11 counts and had faced more than 100 years in prison. However, the court took into account that Winkle pleaded guilty and accepted responsibility for his crimes. Winkle was immediately handcuffed and taken into federal custody. Former Muncie police officer Jeremy Gibson was sentenced today to 14 months in prison, followed by 2 years supervised release. The judge called Gibson's action appalling and said, quote, "Our society cannot tolerate police brutality." Gibson hit suspect Manny Montero with his fist and knee following a 2018 traffic stop. Montero's head and face were severely injured as a result. In court today, Gibson apologized for his actions. Gibson also admitted to writing a false report about the Montero incident, falsely stating Montero did not comply with commands prior to being taken to the ground. Gibson claimed at the time of the incident, the Muncie Police Department was corrupt and officers were not trained properly. 2 other former officers, Dalton Kurtz and Sergeant Joseph Kreisha, are currently serving federal prison time in connection with this case. Officer Corey Posey's trial is scheduled for September 11th.
Okay, right quick, family. This entire news report from the mainstream media, our local news here in Indianapolis, Indiana, is satanic. Just the news report is satanic. So it's not just the 5 faces that I showed you on your screen. It's not just these 5 faces, but also this news reporter. This news station is satanic. I'm going to show you. They are all in on this evil. They always have been. Okay? Yeah, you heard me right. The prosecutor, the judge, the court system there in Muncie, and the mainstream media here in Indiana, including the newscasters, because they have a choice to report the truth and the full truth or participate in the propaganda that they're reporting. So we're going to go through this real quick, and I'm going to show you all the tricks of the devil. Here we go.
Muncie police officer will spend 10 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to 11 counts of using excessive force and trying to cover it up.
Okay, stop right there. The only thing this devil on your screen and this news station and most of the other ones, pretty much all the mainstream ones, the only thing they're reporting in their updates, you just heard, that an officer pleaded guilty to excessive force and falsifying the reports of the excessive force. That's it. Family, they reported this way on purpose. This is a part of their ongoing satanic, systematic white supremacy. Okay? This news clip, I played it through. You see, it was barely over a minute long. It included the least amount of information they could possibly put in this clip about this case and this situation on purpose. They softballed the words that they use, calling this as just excessive force and falsification of records. I'm going to show you. They softballed that to the public on purpose. Okay? If they were going to report the truth, the whole truth, one, this news report would have been quite a bit longer, this update, because it would include all of the pertinent, truthful, full description information to explain what this case is about, what these officers did, and what's the update in regards to their sentences and what have you. Okay? But that was just the first one. Excessive force and falsification of reports. I'm going to show you. Here we go.
A judge sentenced Chase Winkle, the son of former police chief Joe Winkle.
Stop right there. This guy, Chase Winkle, is the son, you just heard it, the son of the former police chief of this same department. Let that sink in. Keep that somewhere on your mind, in the periphery in your mind. He's the son of the previous police chief. Been there a long time. Been working with his daddy, for his daddy, a long time. I mean, his daddy, Satan. What this officer, as well as really the whole 5 of them, and it's more than that, what they've been doing these excessive force things for years in Muncie, terrorizing people in Muncie. Okay? Starting with the ex-police chief, his son, right here on your screen. Right? Don't miss that point. Here we go, fam.
To a decade behind bars, followed by 2 years of supervised release. Winkle admitted to assaulting 5 suspects, including Manny Montero and Lonnie Gannum.
Okay. That Chase Winkle you just saw on your screen, he agreed to a 10-year federal sentence. Don't miss that, family. This devil agreed to a 10-year federal sentence. Or, in other words, a plea deal. Why was this devil given a plea deal when the prosecutor has all of the evidence? Yeah, you see, your satanic mainstream news media, they're not asking that question. They're not even making a point. They just beebity-bobbity-beebity right through their little satanic report, leaving all of this information out. Why was this devil allowed to plead or to a plea deal in Muncie, Indiana court system when the prosecutor had all the evidence they needed. Enough evidence and 11 charges that added up to approximately a 100-year sentence possibility. Why would you then turn, with all the evidence, facing a possible 100-year sentence, and then give this race soldier devil a plea agreement for 10 years? How do you go from possible facing 100 years sentence down to just 10 years? Look at this victim's injuries. We're going to talk more about his injuries here and what they did to this victim and others in a moment. But again, don't miss the point, family. Not only was he the ex-police chief's son, not only have they been not doing this for decades to people, terrorizing people, but the prosecutor made a plea agreement, even though the prosecutor had all the evidence they needed, that had this devil facing a 100-year sentence. Why would the prosecutor do that? Now, I know what y'all saying. Some of y'all going, well, the plea agreement gives, assurance that you're going to get a guilty and sentencing and all that. The case, no. Prosecutors all over this America have been doing this from the beginning when it comes to protecting their race soldiers. They give them plea deals in most cases. And they lie, they spit out the lie. Oh, well, it ensures a conviction and we get the, punishment and consequence. That's all a lie. Either a jury or a judge should have been rendering a guilty verdict and rendering sentencing, with these terrorist devils not having any say or choice in their consequences. Do you see the difference? Oh, let's continue. Let's just go ahead.
Which caused serious injuries to their heads and faces. Winkle also admitted to writing false reports to cover up his misconduct.
One other point, family. These are supposed law enforcement officers, not only physically terrorizing people in Muncie, but they're lying on their reports. And all this guy gets is 10 years. Whatever happened to the requirement that those in positions of authority not only have higher responsibility, but also have higher consequences when they violate their authority? Whatever happened to that notion? Have you noticed that doesn't happen in America? Have you noticed that? It's actually the reverse in the satanic U.S. People in positions of authority either get no consequences for their crimes, or they get softball consequences that are drastically less than the consequences for regular citizens who have done the same crime or same type of crime. I mean, really, regular sentence, can't talk today. Regular sentence, I still can't talk. Wow. I'm going to get it, y'all. Regular citizens cannot even do these type of crimes because they don't have the legal authority of so-called law enforcement. Right? A regular citizen can't lie on police reports. A regular citizen, people don't surrender to regular citizens the same way they do to law enforcement. So regular citizens can't even commit these types or this level of crimes. But regular citizens, still can't talk, y'all. Regular citizens get way longer sentences than these devils for lesser crimes. Let's continue.
He was convicted on 11 counts and had faced more than 100 years in prison. However, the court took into account that Winkle pleaded guilty and accepted responsibility for his crimes.
So he got 90 years reduced, 99-0. He got 90 years reduced off his sentencing because he pled guilty. Now, be clear, fam. This devil only pled guilty to the specific crimes that they had evidence for. But do you believe those are the only crimes that this devil has been committing? Or any of these devils? Do you believe that? These were the only, he got 11 counts. These were the only crimes he committed. 90 years reduced, removed, taken away off his possible sentence because he admitted his crimes and he pled guilty. That was the agreement they made. Why? When the prosecutor had all the evidence they needed to sustain a conviction without a plea deal. Yeah. Let's continue.
Winkle was immediately handcuffed and taken into federal custody. Former Muncie police officer Jeremy Gibson was sentenced today to 14 months in
14 months. So the main devil, the son of the ex-police chief, they worked together for years, him and his daddy, plus these other 4 officers, they've all worked together for years, some more than 10 years, decades, doing this stuff. But this second one, all he gets is 14 months, a year and 2 months.
Prison, followed by 2 years supervised release. The judge called Gibson's action appalling and said, quote, "Our society cannot tolerate police brutality." Gibson hit suspect Manny Montero with his fist and knee following a 2018 traffic stop. Montero's head and face were severely injured as a result. In court today, Gibson apologized for his actions. Gibson also admitted to writing a false report about the Montero incident.
Okay, at this time, family, we're going to take a brief non-commercial break, and we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, family, we are back. Now, a couple of quick things. The officer you saw walking between the two ladies, he got 14 months for doing this to this victim. Now, notice the mainstream media report, they mentioned this victim's name first. They showed the second officer walking. They mentioned this specific victim's name. And then several moments later, they finally showed the victim's picture. They did that on purpose. If they were telling the truth, they would put this victim's image right next to the image of the second officer walking and said he received 14 months for his participation in the terrorism put on this victim. Do you see how they're manipulating the story to smooth it out, to throw softballs with this, to mislead and misguide and minimize what actually has occurred? And one additional note. So, just real quick, I want to go back here. Give me just a moment. All right. This is the second officer, Gibson, right? In this image, there's something that I really want to point out here. I want you to see it clearly. Have you seen it yet? If you're really paying attention, this officer is a terrorist. He's convicted of terrorism, right? Now, from this image, you can only assume, allegedly, that the lady, the female that's on his right arm, holding hands with him, walking beside him, is his spouse, is his wife. Okay? Let that sink in. He just has been convicted of terrorism, not excessive force. No. Terrorism. They're calling it excessive force because that's what they do as a part of the whole white supremacy system, is to minimize, if acknowledge at all, the satanic crimes that they do. Do you see that? But the point I'm making here is, it would appear his wife walking with him, holding hands, through his conviction of satanic terrorism on other human beings. I mean, to do the things that they've been doing to people for decades is literally inhumane. But somehow, it's not inhumane enough for his wife to not stay with them, be with them in support of his inhumane terrorism that he's been doing. Don't miss that in this image, family. So, doesn't that make And I'm just asking the question, doesn't that make his wife fully 100% support what her satanic husband has done and has been doing? If she's there today in support of him? Absolutely it does. Do you see that? It says that her support of him says that she's okay enough with what terrorism and satanic behavior he's been doing for decades. She's okay enough with it to continue to support him and be there for him. That's what that says. So what does that say about her? And you wonder why he felt confident and arrogant about doing the satanic terrorism that he's been doing. It would only lead you to suspect that after terrorizing people, he was just going home going, hey, baby, let me tell you about what we did to these fools, these animals out there in the streets today. And she sat down with her ice cream bonbons and said, ooh, yeah, tell me what y'all did today. Don't miss that, family. So let's move on. And remember, he only got 14 months for doing this with the first cop, Winkle. They did it together. Them two together did this to this victim. Okay? And all he got was 14 months, which you'll be lucky to serve half of that. Just like with the first officer supposedly getting 10 years. Good luck if he serves more than half of that. You see how systematic white supremacy works? Let's continue.
Writing a false report about the Montero incident, falsely stating Montero did not comply with commands prior to being taken to the ground. Gibson claimed at the time of the incident, the Muncie Police Department was corrupt and officers were not trained properly.
Stop right there. Did you hear what he just said? The second officer, the one with his wonderful support wife, satanic wife, he said in court, he tried to blame what they did to these victims that they have the evidence for was because they weren't trained properly. It wasn't because he's an animal. It wasn't because he is the face of Ha-Satan himself. He said, oh, well, we only terrorized this man and these victims and all the other ones that y'all don't know about. We only did that because they didn't train us not to do it. He said that in court. Let me run it back for you. Let me run it back for you. Just in case you think I just made it up. Listen very carefully.
Of the incident, the Muncie Police Department was corrupt and officers were not trained properly.
Not only were they not trained properly, let me run it back for you. One more again. We got to get, there was another statement in there. Here we go.
Taken to the ground. Gibson claimed at the time of the incident, the Muncie Police Department was corrupt.
At the time of their attack on this victim and the others, he said in court that the Muncie Police Department was corrupt. with this type of behavior and God knows what else. Now, this has been stated in court, but in this news report, there's no information reported that there's investigations into all of these officers' previous cases and the entire Muncie Police Department. You ain't heard that in this report yet, and it's almost over. It's only a couple seconds left. It was corrupt. And oh, by the way, they didn't train me right, so that's why we did it. And they give this guy 14 months. And that's all. Can you say systematic white supremacy?
And officers were not trained properly. Two other former officers, Dalton Kurtz and Sergeant Joseph Kreisha, are currently serving federal prison time in connection with this case.
Stop right there. More softball misdirection. You saw him just say two of the other officers, they're currently serving federal time. No. If they had any intention of telling the full truth to the public, they would have said the other two officers, they would have gave both of their names and gave respectfully how much prison time each of those officers are currently serving. Did you hear him say that? Let me back it up again. Here you go. Listen.
Serving federal prison time in connection with this case. Officer Corey Posey's trial is scheduled for September.
Hold on. I didn't back that up far now. We're going to get it.
Properly.
Two other
former officers, Dalton Kurtz and Sergeant Joseph Kreisha, are currently serving federal prison time in connection with this case.
He gave their names, but he did not list what prison time they're serving in this report. Let's move forward.
Officer Corey Posey's trial is scheduled for September 11th. A former Muncie.
There's a last officer that haven't even been through his trial yet that's going to get a slap on the wrist like the rest of them. Okay? So that's one of the whole purposes of the new black media, family. Because we bring the receipts. And I got receipts for you today. We're going to briefly go over and share with you more specifically what these officers did. And you be the judge as whether the 10-year sentence, the 14-month sentence, and the sentence for the other two officers that they didn't mention are just. Okay? Let's go over that. Before we do, be clear. You know, Katie School always got to give y'all what Yah said. Because ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a what? Murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. That's John chapter 8, verse 44. And what these officers admit to doing? Yeah. Okay. So basically, the Muncie prosecutor is playing let's make a deal with terrorist race soldiers that they have all of the evidence for all of the evidence that will sustain an easy conviction on all of these 5 devils. But instead of doing that, by choice, the Muncie prosecutor offers these 5 devils plea agreements so that the Muncie prosecutor in court can give them lesser slap on the wrist sentences. Do you see the white supremacy? Let's move forward. It almost sounds this whole crew of officers, running around the city terrorizing citizens, attacking, beating citizens nearly till they are unalived. Doesn't that sound familiar? Oh, wait. It was a crew of black officers in Memphis, right? With our brother Terry Nichols. Now, isn't that a coincidence? Oh, that's just got to be a coincidence, I'm sure. And again, on your screen, family, is a previous report we have here at One Brothas Mind. Again, go to One Brothas Mind, click on the live tab and scroll down. You'll find this one. You may have to go back a couple of pages because we have a lot of reports here at One Brothas Mind. But you keep hitting the page back button. You'll get to this one. But my point is, there's a crew of devils. And be clear, especially to my white listeners, these were a crew of black devils. Yeah. The devil has no race. The devil has no color. Hasatan will be or use whoever is willing. So don't get KD Smooth twisted. Yeah, matter of fact, that is. These the devils that was on the satanic crew in Memphis. It's 5 of them, right? Just like it was 5 of them in Muncie, Indiana here, right? That's got to be a coincidence, man. Just got to be. Oh, wait. What is this on the screen? Systematic white supremacy report number 4? What's it say? Mississippi white supremacist race soldiers? Wait a minute. Whoa! The Goon Squad? Did you hear about this one? It's another satanic crew of so-called law enforcement officers in Mississippi that attacked and terrorized 2 black victims in their home without a warrant. Y'all, I'm sure you heard of it. You know, the report where one of these officers literally put his gun in the mouth of one of the black victims and shot his gun. It took off the man's tongue and went out his neck. Yeah, this these devils on your screen. That's them. So again, Muncie, Indiana, Memphis, Tennessee, Mississippi. What's all these crews running around terrorizing people? Is it a coincidence? Or is it white supremacy? Systematic white supremacy. Is this the status quo? Is this the norm? There's even reports, many of y'all have already heard, about the gangs of so-called law enforcement officers in California. They have literal tats and everything. These are the officers that are tatted up with their gang tats for their crews, their goon squads, as so-called law enforcement officers. My point here, family, is these crews are not a coincidence. If you ain't figured it out, they're in most every city in the U.S. Why? Because this is the system of white supremacy. This is one arm, one wing of how they enforce systematic white supremacy out on the streets to the citizens by using these goon squads. This is not a coincidence. They've been doing this from the get up. For centuries, they've been doing this, getting away with it. And when they actually get caught, they give most of them slaps on the wrist, so-called fire them eventually after they got a vacation with pay, and then nothing else to see here, y'all. Move on. And they just start another goon squad. Yeah. So, again, don't forget the point I made earlier. This Mr. Gibson's, the Devil Gibson's wife, she was right there with him. Yeah. Right there, right beside him. I'm with you, baby. I'm right here with you. We gonna get through this. They're doing us an injustice. We've been doing the job. We're doing what they told us to do, what they wanted us to do, and they just hanging us out to dry, baby. Remember? Oh, okay. Again, this is here at this point, I'm going to share some of the highlights of my previous report on this Muncie, Indiana goon squad, these devils. But here's the thumbnail that you'll find on One Brothas Mind. If you go down, click on the live tab and scroll down, you'll find this previous report where I go into far more detail as to what these devils actually did. But I'm going to share with you some highlights here real quick. Okay? First off, again, we already talked about the victim on the left. But one of their other victims, as you see here on the right, yeah. This one, yeah, they did this to him. This second victim on the right. Well, let's talk about the details. Remember, while we go over the details of the victim on the right, remember, only one got 10 years. The other got 14 months. And the rest of them, it wasn't even enough for them to even mention in the mainstream so-called media report, right? So we're going to go over some of the details for the victim on the right. I just want you guys to see the damage they did to this man, right? Here we go. This is far more than a broken collarbone. The victim on his right's name was Jesse. Jesse's collarbone was wedged against his carotid artery. The surgeons were reluctant to try to repair the injury because the surgery was so dangerous. However, earlier this year, they discovered that the bone laying on his carotid artery has caused dilation in his aortic root of Jesse's heart, which is basically an aneurysm. They did the surgery to repair the injury. So they could not do the surgery. The man was going to be unalived. So they did the surgery to repair the injury, and it was unsuccessful. A few weeks later, after the unsuccessful surgery, they had to open the same incision back up and remove all of the hardware. Speaking of bone, everything there in that area, because of the dangers of it puncturing a vital organ. That is why Jesse's injuries are permanent, or is a permanent disfiguration. The victim on the right. The first officer only got 10 years. The second officer, with his loving, supportive wife, only got 14 months. And this is just 2 of their victims. There are many more. The first officer, again, was facing 11 counts total, 5 federal civil rights offenses, and 6 obstruction offenses for lying on the reports to cover up what they had been doing. And he's the son of the former police chief. Where do you believe he, the son of the former police chief, got his training in regards to how to be an officer and how to treat people? Yeah, only 10 years. All right, so we're going to briefly look at some of the details of I want you to focus on the highlighted yellow portions. Okay. Matter of fact, let me turn this off briefly because I don't want it to distract your eyes. I'm just going to go over the details. Again, I go over this full information in my previous report, but today I'm only going to go over the highlighted portions. But this is the first officer that just got 10 years, Officer Winkle. In one case, Officer Winkle, using his knee, dropped his full body weight down onto a victim named LG, or he dropped his full body weight using his knee down onto LG's neck and head area. Winkle deployed then a taser into LG's back. LG ended up with multiple facial fractures that required surgery. In another instance, I'm in the middle paragraph here, NB, a suspect, alerted Officer Winkle and wait, let me take that back. NB was a suspect, and it's actually Officer Kurtz, Kurtz, which was one of the 5 here, alerted Officer Winkle about NB, the suspect. Okay? And Officer Kurtz aimed his firearm and flashlight at NB, who was lying on his stomach with his arms extended in front of him and his hands visible and open. As NB laid on the ground, the suspect, with his hands extended in front of him, Officer Winkle, the first officer that only got to agree to 10 years, ran towards the man lying on the ground with his arms extended, and kicked him in the head. In addition, Winkle delivered approximately 2 closed fist strikes to the back or side of NB's head and 2 open hand strikes to NB's face. In a third incident with a third victim, several of these officers found another suspect in an alleyway. They were pursuing another suspect, found him in an alleyway. The suspect stood up and immediately put his hands up in the air with his palms open in the position indicating surrender. Winkle, this officer, the one that only got to agree to 10 years, ordered the suspect, IP, to get down on the ground. And IP, with his hands in the air, began to get down on the ground. As the suspect began to lower himself to the ground, Officer Winkle kicked him in the abdomen or hip area, causing him to fall backwards into a chain link fence behind him. It's a grown man he's kicking. Got to kick him pretty hard to make somebody fall backwards. As the suspect, or IP, tried to steady himself against the fence, Winkle delivered a second kick directly to IP's head, knocking IP, the suspect, unconscious. And of course, after all of these, the reports Winkle wrote were pure lies. Right? So that's 5 victims so far. Right? If they're not mixing the stories. For victim number 4, at the top, Winkle placed DE, a suspect, in handcuffs, and then struck and used a pain compliance technique on him. Okay, I didn't include it in this report, but I saw a previous video. A lot of times when these body cam videos come out, stuff like that, they come out and then they get taken down. So I don't have it in this report, but I recall, from what I recall, allegedly Winkle had the suspects sitting on the ground on like the side of the road, struck him, and then use a pain compliance. The pain compliance technique was when you have a suspect cuffed and they're sitting on the ground, they use so-called pain compliance. They just lift your hands up, start lifting up and pulling up on your hands, which it makes you feel like your shoulders are going to be ripped out of socket, because they're just pulling up on your hands while they're holding you in the sitting position while you're handcuffed. Okay? That's number 4. Number 5, in the middle paragraph. As BB, the number 5 suspect, started to pull the seatbelt off his body because it was a traffic stop, he was ordered to get out of the car. He was complying, but realized he had not disconnected the seatbelt. So he was stuck in his seatbelt, trying to get out of the vehicle. Winkle came up to him and punched BB, the suspect, in the face. And the officers wrestled BB, the suspect, to the ground and continued to beat on him. They call it a scuffle here. How's he scuffling? The suspect is being beaten. I digress. After which, Winkle used not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 knee strikes to BB's torso area and lied on the report. Bottom paragraph. Gibson and Winkle again. They were doing a regular traffic stop. When the driver stepped out of the car, let me back up. They were doing a traffic stop reportedly because a car's headlights were out. Okay? And Gibson, the second officer, initiated this traffic stop, but Winkle, his satanic buddy, was right there with him, right? When the driver stepped out of the car, Gibson attempted to physically take him to the ground. Why? Because your headlights are off, or they're out, or they're malfunctioning? Why you gotta be ordered to step out the car? Write the ticket, move on, right? But Gibson physically attempted to take the driver down to the ground and punched him several times with a closed fist in the process. As other officers attempted to secure the suspect, listed here as EM, Officer Winkle used a knee strike to the left side of the suspect, the person driving where the headlights were out or not working. He used a knee strike to the side of EM's head or upper body. Well, which one is it? Then Gibson, the second officer you saw walking with his loving, supportive wife, delivered a knee strike to the right of EM's head. So, yeah, Winkle kneed him to the left side of his head for his headlights not working or being on. And then Gibson kneed the man to the right side of his head, causing his head to swing to the left back toward Winkle. And Winkle delivered another knee strike to the left side of EM's head. And you guessed it, Winkle lied on the whole report to cover all this up. They didn't report none of this stuff. But Winkle was allowed to agree to 10 years by the prosecutor. Gibson and Winkle and the other 3 officers. Gibson, with his loving, supportive, satanic wife, only got 14 months for doing this and playing knee tag with Winkle using a human being's head. 14 months. Again, this is just another more. And this guy, Gibson, has been on the force for 27 years. He's been doing this terrorism for 27 years. And they give him or allow him to agree to 14 months. Are you starting to see why this fits the full description of systematic white supremacy? Because this doesn't happen without the prosecutor being in on it, the judge being in on it. 14 months? And oh, yeah, here's another one, Kurtz. I mentioned him earlier. Look at one of the things he did. With Winkle, the first officer, they were chasing a juvenile suspect. So Winkle ran toward the juvenile and kicked him in the head without justification. a juvenile. Kurtz knew that Officer Winkle's actions constituted a felony, but failed to notify anyone of the crime. Instead, he took the affirmative steps of concealing his knowledge of what Winkle had just done. Why? Because they all were in on it. They all have been in on this stuff for decades. Now, the reason why? Winkle's daddy used to be their boss. And this is how daddy trained them and taught them how to be law enforcement officers. The mainstream media update didn't tell y'all all of this, did they? They've been doing this for decades to people in Muncie, in Memphis, Tennessee, in Mississippi, in LA. Go down the list. You can name every state and pretty much every city. So, here at One Brothas Mind, I asked you two questions. The first, smash the like button, share this report on all your social media with all your peoples, and be sure you are subscribed to One Brothas Mind, because we try to bring you the information and facts you need. The second question is, with these goon squads all over the country, nearly unaliving, permanently disfiguring and damaging people, and actually unaliving people, why is it not pull up 2023 and beyond? Why aren't our brothers and sisters and people in Muncie pulling up to the prosecutor's location, the judge's location? Shall we say the officer's locations? I ask another question based on what Brother Malcolm said, and I quote, "Self-defense is not violence, it's intelligence." With these goon squads, and whether it's an individual white supremacist race soldier or a goon squad, has the time come for people to not just willingly surrender to these race soldiers? Not just willingly allow them to disarm us, therefore then leaving us completely vulnerable to their satanic game tactics? Has that time come? I'm only asking questions. I'm not advocating any violence, any revenge, or anything. But here at One Brothas Mind, I do advocate for self-defense, the right to defend your life and the lives of your families. Is that time not already here? Is my question. Actually, interesting, just before doing this report, and I don't have all the details on this yet, but I literally heard a report just come across about an off-duty officer. I'm trying to remember where this was. I can't. But there was an off-duty officer that got caught up in a road rage situation. Some of you may have heard about this. Basically, there were two brothers apparently blocking the street in their vehicle, in their car, and an off-duty officer drove around that car with those two young men in it that was blocking the road and drove on, right? I guess to the traffic light or the end of the street. And shortly thereafter, the officer reached the end of the street at the traffic light. The vehicle with the two brothers that was previously blocking the street drove up to the light as well. So now they're sitting side by side. The police get real vague on this part of what happened next or why it happened. But all of a sudden, the two brothers end up outside of their car and the officer end up outside of the car. All these three are outside their car. The police get real vague on why that happened. But just from that much of the story, you can already, with reasonable logic, assume, allegedly, that when the two brothers pulled up that were previously blocking the road, that off-duty officer had something disrespectful, something harsh to say. And the brothers responded verbally, and enough of an argument ensued to where the brothers felt threatened by this off-duty officer who, at this time, up to this point, they had no idea was an off-duty officer. He was just another driver that had something additional to say, if not something threatening to say, which caused the brothers to jump out of their vehicle. Like, okay, then, well, what's up? Off-duty officer. And remember, at this time, the brothers have no idea it's an off-duty officer. He jumps out of his vehicle, so now they're outside the vehicle. And within a few moments, the off-duty officer goes, well, get out on the ground. I'm an officer. You got to get on the ground. You're under arrest. Well, wait a minute. Let's back up. Could it have been another option? Could, when the brothers pulled up beside the unknown off-duty officer, could they have pulled up beside him and the officer had something to say? Then the brothers had something to say in response. And then the next thing you know, the brothers are looking at facing a firearm. And the brothers made the decision, okay, if we about to go out, we ain't going out running. Do you see that? Or let me say it to you another way. A lot of officers have this thing where they can say whatever they want to say, speak to people however they feel like, and they have this expectation that everybody's just going to take their BS, going to take their threats and just be okay with that. Everyone is not built like that out here in these streets, especially when they don't know you're an off-duty officer at the time. So as soon as the off-duty officer saw that these brothers wanted all the smoke out here in the streets, 9 times out of 10, not only did that officer say more verbally threatened things, but now the officer is feeling somewhat threatened. Oh, now he pulled his trump card. He pulled his big joker out. He pulled his power tool out. And now it goes, hey, you're under arrest now because I'm an officer. Isn't that convenient? Do you see how that goes? The story didn't stop there. Them brothers ended up tussling with that officer. Because now he done pulled that thing on him. And again, everybody ain't out here in these streets built to just run, just to take whatever race soldiers are wanting to dish out. Everybody ain't gonna just take it lying down. So they ended up tussling. There's still more investigating, and which, as I told y'all before, when they say investigating, they're not investigating. They're finding all the ways and the best ways they can cover up what the officers did or what the authorities did. That's all they're doing. We may never know what really happened, but in the end result, after the officer who now, after the brothers got out the car wanting all the smoke, like, what's up? Now the officers want to get out of his car and pull his power tool on these brothers. If he hadn't already pulled it and pointed it at them while they were still sitting in the car. Now he wants to say, I'm an officer, get down on the ground. Now he wants to pull that Trump card. Right? But then a tussle ensues. Several shots are fired from the officer's weapon. This just happened. I ain't even finished looking into that story. One of the brothers ends up being shot in one of his hands. Right? Could that have happened because he attempted to block the officer's weapon that was pointed at his head or at his face or at him, trying to move it out of the way to prevent himself from being shot, and he actually ends up, the officer shoots him in the hand? That's a feasible option. In addition to that, the tussling continues to go on, and somehow the officer ends up getting shot in the leg, the off-duty officer. Right? Guess who they arrested and are charging? Yeah, y'all already know. But again, as Malcolm X said, self-defense is not violence, it's intelligence. And I asked the question. I'm not suggesting nobody do nothing. No violence, no revenge, no crimes. Don't do nothing. Don't start nothing. Is KD Smooth's message here at One Brothas Mind. But as we continue to find ourselves in these situations with more and more satanic white supremacist race soldiers, when is it the time coming? Is it here? Is it coming? When is the time for us to start defending ourselves from these white supremacist race soldiers? I'm just asking the question. Yeah. And at this time, family, we're going to have a brief word from our unofficial sponsor at this time. And I ask you, if you have not had a chance to check out our brother's channel, Professor Black Truth, giving him a big shout out, please find yourself an opportunity to check out his channel and hopefully subscribe. And again, a word from our unofficial sponsor.
A word from the official sponsor of Black Empowerment, Power Tools. There's no telling when something's going to come up, so make sure you carry your power tools at all times. You never know when you're going to need to bring the hammer down, or when you'll have some trash that needs to be blown away, or some obstacle that requires cutting down. Don't get caught empty-handed. Keep your hammer close by. Keep that leaf blower at the ready, and always carry your steel. Power tools. Because no matter what your day job or side hustle may be, there's no excuse for not being ready to put in some work.
Here at One Brothas, we thank you for joining us. And as a part of the new black media, B1 choices are mandatory and being on code is required. But never fear, Yeshua the Christ is with you always. Shalom.